Mystics, chosen ones, lean in close. What I'm about to share isn't just another feel-good spiritual pep talk. This is about the darkest night your soul will ever face. A night so profound, so earth-shattering, that it has the power to break you open and reform you into something entirely new. You've felt it, haven't you? That gnawing emptiness that no amount of success or love can fill. The creeping suspicion that everything you've believed about yourself and the world might be a lie. The terrifying realization that you're lost in a universe that suddenly seems cold and meaningless. If you're nodding right now, if your heart is racing and your palms are sweating, know this: you're not losing your mind. You're not failing at life or spirituality. You're standing at the threshold of the dark night of the soul, and it might just be the most important journey you'll ever take. I've been there, chosen ones. I've crawled through that darkness, clawed my way through despair so thick I thought I'd suffocate. And I'm here to tell you that there's light on the other side. A light so bright, so transformative, that it makes every moment of suffering worth it. So buckle up, mystics. We're about to dive deep into the dark night of the soul, what it is, why it happens, and how to navigate it. This isn't just about survival. It's about emerging from the darkness as the radiant, powerful being you were always meant to be. The dark night of the soul, a term coined by 16th century mystic St. John of the Cross, is more than just a bad mood or a spiritual funk. It's a profound crisis that strips away everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world. Imagine your soul as a house hit by a spiritual earthquake. The foundations crack, the walls crumble, and you're left standing in the rubble, wondering what the hell just happened. I remember my own dark night vividly. On paper, my life was perfect. Dream job, nice apartment, great relationship. But inside, I was screaming. Colors seemed muted, food lost its taste, and I'd catch myself staring at walls, wondering, is this all there is? Everything felt pointless, meaningless. During this time, I remember sitting in a park, watching people rush by. They all seemed so certain, so sure of where they were going and why. And there I was, feeling like I was behind a glass wall. Everything seemed so pointless. Why were we all rushing around? What was the purpose of it all? These questions haunted me, day and night. But here's the kicker, chosen ones. This isn't just about suffering. It's a catalyst for profound transformation. It's spiritual boot camp, breaking you down to rebuild you stronger, wiser, more authentic. The dark night isn't a punishment. It's an invitation to evolve, to awaken, to become who you truly are. St. John described 2 stages of this process, the dark night of the senses and the dark night of the spirit. Let's dive deeper into each of these. Mystics. The dark night of the senses is often the first stage. Here you begin to lose pleasure in spiritual practices. Prayer feels empty. Meditation becomes a chore. The emotional highs you might have experienced in your spiritual life, the sense of divine presence, the joy of worship, vanish. You might think you're doing something wrong, that you've somehow fallen out of favor with the divine. But in reality, you're being prepared for a deeper spiritual journey. This stage is about purification, chosen ones. It's stripping away your attachment to spiritual consolations, those good feelings that can become a kind of spiritual materialism. Just as a child must learn to do the right thing without the promise of a reward, your soul in the dark night learns to seek the divine for its own sake, not for any spiritual, feel-good moments. But if the dark night of the senses is the outer courtyard of spiritual transformation, the dark night of the spirit is its inner sanctum. This is where the real work begins. Mystics. Here, you're not just dealing with a loss of spiritual consolation. You're facing a profound crisis of faith and identity. Everything you thought you knew about yourself and your place in the universe is called into question. In this stage, you might experience what St. John called spirit of blasphemy, intrusive thoughts that go against your deepest beliefs. You might feel a profound sense of abandonment, as if the divine has turned its back on you. Your concept of spirituality, of your very self, all of it is thrown into chaos. This stage is about the deepest kind of purification, chosen ones. It's a stripping away, not just of sensory attachments, but of the very constructs of your mind and ego. It's preparing you for a direct encounter with the divine, unmediated by concepts or beliefs. But chosen ones, this experience of spiritual crisis and transformation isn't unique to Christian mysticism. It's a universal human experience, recognized across various spiritual traditions. In Buddhism, for instance, there's a concept that closely parallels the dark night of the soul. It's called samsara, the cycle of suffering that all beings experience. Now you might think, why would I want to go through suffering? But here's the thing, mystics. In Buddhism, this suffering is seen as essential for enlightenment. Imagine you're climbing a mountain, chosen ones. The journey is tough, grueling even. You might slip, you might fall, you might wonder why you ever started this climb in the first place. But it's only by going through this challenging journey that you can reach the summit and see the breathtaking view. That's what samsara is like. It's the challenging journey that leads to spiritual awakening. Buddhism also emphasizes the importance of detachment and the dissolution of the ego. Sound familiar? It's very much like the purification aspect of the dark night that St. John of the Cross describes. The Buddhists teach that it's our attachment to our idea of self, to our desires and aversions, that causes our suffering. By letting go of these attachments, by allowing our ego to dissolve, we open ourselves up to a profound spiritual awakening. In fact, in Buddhist teachings, spiritual crises often occur just before the realization of nirvana, the state of enlightenment. It's like the darkness before the dawn, the final push before a breakthrough. So if you're in the midst of your dark night, mystics, take heart. This could be the precursor to your own spiritual awakening. Now, let's journey to another ancient tradition, Hinduism. In this rich tapestry of spiritual wisdom, the dark night of the soul can be seen as part of the path of self-realization, or moksha, which means liberation. There's a beautiful story in the Bhagavad Gita, one of Hinduism's most sacred texts, that illustrates this. Picture this, chosen ones. A great warrior named Arjuna is about to enter a battle. But as he looks out over the battlefield, he sees his friends, his family, his teachers on the opposing side. He's suddenly overwhelmed with despair and confusion. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't know what's right or wrong anymore. Sound familiar? This moment of crisis for Arjuna is very much like the dark night of the soul. Everything he thought he knew is thrown into question. He's paralyzed by doubt and fear. But then, his charioteer, who is actually the god Krishna in disguise, begins to counsel him. Krishna guides Arjuna through his spiritual crisis, helping him to see beyond his limited perspective and understand his true divine nature. This story, mystics, is a powerful illustration of how the dark night, while painful and confusing, can be a gateway to higher understanding. It shows us that even in our moments of deepest despair, divine guidance is available to us if we're open to receiving it. But our journey through spiritual traditions doesn't end there, chosen ones. Let's turn our gaze to the mystical branch of Islam, known as Sufism. The Sufis have a beautiful way of describing the spiritual journey, and their teachings offer yet another perspective on the dark night of the soul. In Sufism, there are two crucial stages in the mystical journey that closely resemble the dark night. They're called Fana and Baka. Now don't let the foreign words intimidate you. Let's break them down. Fana means annihilation of the self. Imagine you're a drop of water, mystics. Fana is the moment when that drop falls into the ocean. It seems to disappear, to be annihilated. This stage can feel terrifying because it seems like you're losing yourself. Everything you thought you were is dissolving. This is very much like the dark night, where your old self, your ego, your attachments are all being stripped away. But here's where it gets beautiful. After Fana comes Baka, which means subsistence in God. Continuing our water metaphor, this is when you realize that although you're no longer a separate drop, you're now one with the entire ocean. You haven't really been annihilated. You've expanded into something infinitely greater. This Sufi teaching offers us a powerful reframe for the dark night, chosen ones. What feels like a loss, like a kind of death, is actually an expansion, a rebirth into something far more vast and beautiful than we could have imagined. The Sufis teach that through these stages, one experiences profound emptiness and detachment from worldly things. Sound familiar? It's that sense of everything losing its meaning that we talked about earlier. But in Sufism, this emptying out is seen as necessary to make room for the divine, to achieve unity with God. So, mystics, whether we look to Christian mysticism, Buddhism, Hinduism, or Sufism, we see a common thread. The dark night of the soul, by whatever name it's called, is recognized as a crucial part of the spiritual journey. It's the chrysalis stage, where everything breaks down so that something new and beautiful can emerge. Now, mystics and chosen ones, let's turn our attention to a more contemporary spiritual teacher who has profound insights into the dark night of the soul, Eckhart Tolle. Tolle sees this experience not just as a spiritual crisis, but as a potential gateway to profound awakening. He describes it as a dissolution of the ego, that voice in your head that constantly judges, compares, and seeks identity in external things. Imagine, chosen ones, that everything you thought you were, your job, your relationships, your beliefs, your very sense of self, suddenly starts to crumble. It's terrifying, isn't it? But Tolle would say that this dismantling is actually the beginning of true freedom. You see, mystics, what's really happening during the dark night, according to Tolle, is that your old self is dying. The you that was constructed by your mind, your past, your societal conditioning. It's all breaking down, and in its place, something new is emerging. Your true self, what Tolle calls your essence identity. Now, I know what you're thinking. Great, so I'm falling apart. How is that supposed to help? Well, lean in close, chosen ones, because this is important. Tolle would say that it's in this breaking down that you have the opportunity to discover who you really are beneath all the mental noise and emotional baggage. But here's the key, mystics: presence. Tolle emphasizes the importance of being fully present with whatever you're experiencing during this dark night. Don't run from the pain. Don't try to numb it. Don't attempt to think your way out of it. Instead, He advises to fully feel it, to be with it. Imagine you're sitting by a river, chosen ones. The river is your streams of thoughts and emotions. During the dark night, that river might be turbulent, even terrifying. Your instinct might be to jump in and try to calm the waters. But Tolle would suggest something radical. Don't jump in. Instead, sit on the bank and watch the river flow by. This is what Tolle calls being the witness or the watcher. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. You're the awareness in which these things arise. And it's in recognizing this, in disidentifying from the turbulence of your mind, that true peace can be found. Now, mystics, Tolle introduces a concept that's particularly relevant to the dark night, the pain body. He describes this as the accumulated emotional pain that we carry within us. During the dark night, this pain body often becomes highly active. Old wounds resurface, past traumas rear their ugly heads. It can feel like you're being consumed by a hain. But here's where it gets interesting. Chosen ones. Tolle sees this activation of the pain body as an opportunity. It's bringing to the surface all the old pain that needs to be acknowledged and released. It's like spiritual surgery. Painful, yes, but ultimately healing. The way through this, according to Tolle, is surrender. Now, don't misunderstand. This isn't about giving up or resigning yourself to suffering. It's about letting go of resistance. It's accepting the present moment as it is, without wishing it were different. Imagine you're in a river again, mystics. But this time, you've fallen in, and you're being swept along by the current. Fighting against it only exhausts you. But if you relax and float, the river will eventually carry you to calmer waters. That's what surrender is like in the dark night of the soul. Tolle would encourage you, chosen ones, to use this time of darkness to find the light of consciousness within you, to discover the part of you that remains untouched by the turmoil of your thoughts and emotions. He might guide you to ask, what remains when everything else falls away? And here's something profound. Tolle suggests that the dark night of the soul is actually the beginning of a shift in consciousness. It's the universe's way of waking you up from the dream of identification with form and thought. It's pushing you towards a new way of being in the world, one rooted in presence and aligned with the flow of life itself. So, mystics, if you find yourself in the depths of the dark night, remember Tolle's wisdom. Be present with what is. Surrender to the process. Recognize that beneath the turbulence of your mind and emotions, there's a stillness, a peace that's always there. And know that this difficult passage may just be the doorway to a more awakened, more authentic way of being. In Tolle's view, the dark night isn't something to be feared or avoided. It's an invitation to wake up, to let go of what no longer serves you, and to discover who you truly are, beyond name and form. It's an opportunity, chosen ones, to die to your old self and be reborn into a life of greater presence, peace, and purpose. As you navigate your own dark night, chosen ones, take comfort in knowing that you're walking a path that mystics and seekers have walked for thousands of years. Your struggle, your pain, your confusion, it's all part of a profound process of transformation. You're not lost. You're on your way to finding yourself in a deeper way than you've ever known before. Now, you might be wondering, why would a loving universe or divine force allow such suffering? Isn't spirituality supposed to bring peace and joy? The answer lies in understanding the purpose of the dark night. You see, mystics, the dark night is not a punishment. It's not a sign that you failed in your spiritual journey. On the contrary, it's a sign that you're ready for a deeper truth, a more profound connection with the divine. It's a gift, albeit a challenging one, that's meant to bring about a total transformation of the soul. Think of it as spiritual surgery, chosen ones. Just as a surgeon must cut away diseased tissue to promote healing, the dark night cuts away our illusions, our false self, our attachments, even our attachments to our idea of God or spirituality. It's painful, yes, but it's a pain that leads to healing and growth. So, what triggers this spiritual crisis? Well, it could be anything. Sometimes it's a major life change, a death, a breakup, losing your job. Other times it sneaks up on you when everything seems fine, like it did for me. It might be sparked by a spiritual practice that opens you up to new levels of consciousness. Or it could be the result of trauma or stress that's been building up for years, finally bursting like a dam. In my case, I think it was a perfect storm. I had spent years chasing external success, thinking it would fill the void inside me. When I finally made it and still felt empty, it shattered my worldview. Plus, I had been ignoring some deeper issues, childhood wounds, unexpressed grief, that chose that moment to demand my attention. It was like my soul said, "Enough is enough. We're dealing with this now." Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds awful. How do I avoid it? Well, lean in close, mystics, because I'm about to tell you something important. You might not want to avoid it. Yes, you heard me right. As painful as the dark night of the soul is, it's also an incredible opportunity for growth. Think of it like this. Imagine you're a caterpillar. You've spent your whole life crawling around, munching on leaves, thinking this is all there is to life. Then one day, you feel this irresistible urge to build a cocoon. Inside that cocoon, you literally dissolve. Your entire being breaks down into goo. If you were conscious during this process, you'd probably think you were dying, right? But we know what happens next. That goo reorganizes itself into something entirely new. Something that can soar above the trees and see the world from a completely different perspective. That's what the dark night of the soul can do for you, chosen one. It breaks you down so you can transform into something greater. So, how do you navigate this challenging time? Here are some strategies that helped me, and I hope they'll help you too. First, practice mindfulness and meditation. When everything feels chaotic, finding stillness can be a lifeline. Start small, mystics. Even 5 minutes a day can make a difference. Sit quietly, focus on your breath, and observe your thoughts without judgment. This practice can help you find a center of calm amidst the storm. Second, seek support. Whether it's a therapist, a spiritual teacher, or trusted friends, don't go through this alone. You might feel like isolating yourself, but connection is crucial. Share your struggles, your doubts, your fears. You might be surprised at how many people have gone through similar experiences. Third, express yourself creatively. Write, paint, dance. Let those intense emotions out in a constructive way. Don't worry about being good at it. The point is expression, not perfection. During my own dark night, I took up abstract painting. I'd slather paint on canvas, letting my emotions guide my hand. Sometimes I'd end up with something beautiful. Other times it looked like a toddler's finger painting. But you know what? It didn't matter. The act of creating was healing in itself. Fourth, connect with nature. There's something about the natural world that can ground you when everything else feels uncertain. Go for a walk in the woods. Sit by a stream. Let nature remind you of the bigger picture. I found solace in unexpected places during my dark night. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter. Something about being around creatures who lived so fully in the present moment helped me get out of my head. Their simple joy in a treat or a belly rub reminded me that life doesn't have to be complicated to be meaningful. Fifth, be patient and gentle with yourself. This is not a process you can rush, chosen one. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to not have it all figured out. Treat yourself with the same compassion you'd offer a dear friend going through a tough time. Lastly, read about others who've been through this. Knowing you're not alone can be incredibly comforting. St. John of the Cross, Carl Jung, Eckhart Tolle. These are just a few who've written about their own dark nights. Their words can offer guidance and hope when you need it most. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, mystics. This process isn't easy. There were days when I didn't want to get out of bed, nights when I raged at the universe, demanding answers, moments when I thought I was losing my mind. I remember one particularly low point, sitting on my kitchen floor at 3 a.m., surrounded by half-eaten takeout containers, wondering if I'd ever feel normal again. But bit by bit, something shifted. It wasn't a sudden epiphany. There was no dramatic moment where the clouds parted and a beam of light shone down on me. Instead, it was more like a gradual dawning. I started to notice small things, the way the sunlight filtered through leaves, the kindness in a stranger's smile. I found myself laughing more easily, crying more freely. And then one day, I realized I felt different. Not perfect, not fixed, but more me. It was like I had shed layers of who I thought I should be and was left with who I really am. The world hadn't changed, but my way of seeing it had. This, my beautiful, courageous chosen ones, is the gift of the dark night of the soul. It strips away everything that isn't truly you, leaving behind something authentic and beautiful. It's like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're highlighted, honored as part of the object's history. So if you're in the midst of your own dark night, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are transforming. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And when you come out the other side, you'll have a depth and wisdom that can only be gained through facing the darkness. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: doubt. It's okay to have doubts, chosen ones. It's natural to question why you're going through such difficult times. Even Jesus, in his moment of greatest trial, cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. But remember, that wasn't the end of the story. After the crucifixion came the resurrection. After the darkness came the light. Your doubts don't negate your faith, mystics. They're part of the journey. Embrace them, wrestle with them, but don't let them paralyze you. As the Father in Mark 9:24 cried out, "I do believe, help me overcome my unbelief." It's okay to believe and still have questions. It's okay to have faith and still struggle. That's what makes your faith real and authentic. As we near the end of our exploration, I want to share a practice with you, mystics. This is something you can return to again and again as you navigate your dark night. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Imagine yourself as a vast, open sky. The thoughts, emotions, and sensations you're experiencing are like clouds passing through this sky. Some are dark and stormy, others are light and fluffy. But you, chosen one, are the sky. Boundless, unchanging, always present. The clouds may obscure your view at times, but they can never change your essential nature. Now bring your attention to your heart center. Imagine a small flame burning there, representing your inner light, your true essence. No matter how dark things get, this flame continues to burn. It may flicker, it may dim, but it never goes out. This is your connection to the divine, to your highest self. It's always there, even when you can't feel it. Take a moment to nurture this flame. Breathe into it, allowing it to grow stronger with each breath. As you do this, feel a sense of warmth and comfort spreading through your body. This is your reminder, mystics, that even in your darkest night, your inner light is still shining. Remember, chosen ones, the dark night of the soul is not a punishment. It's not a sign that you've strayed from your path or that you're somehow failing at spirituality. On the contrary, it's often a sign that you're ready for a deeper level of truth and connection. It's like the universe is saying, you're ready for more. You're ready to shed the old and embrace something new and profound. As you navigate this challenging time, be patient with yourself. The dark night doesn't operate on our preferred timelines. It takes as long as it takes. Trust the process. Trust that even when you can't see it or feel it, growth is happening. You're being reshaped, reformed into something more authentic, more aligned with your true self. And remember, mystics, you're not alone in this. Countless others have walked this path before you. From St. John of the Cross to modern-day seekers, the dark night of the soul is a well-trodden path. You're part of a long lineage of spiritual explorers, brave souls who've dared to face the darkness in search of greater light. As we conclude our journey together, I want to leave you with this thought. The dark night of the soul is not something that happens to you. It's something that happens for you. It's a sacred initiation, a rite of passage that has the potential to transform you at the deepest level. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, it can be painful, but it's also an incredible opportunity for growth, for deepening your spiritual connection, for becoming more fully yourself. It's a chance to shed the layers of conditioning and false beliefs that have been holding you back, and to step into your true power as a spiritual being. So, chosen ones, if you find yourself in the midst of your dark night, know this: you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are going through a profound transformation, and on the other side of this darkness is a light brighter than you can imagine. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the dark night of the soul. If this video resonated with you, please like and subscribe to Mystical Illumination for more explorations of consciousness and spirituality. Share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And remember, chosen ones, in the words of the great Leonard Cohen, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Until next time, this is Mystical Illuminator, reminding you that even in your darkest night, you are loved, you are worthy, and you are not alone. Keep shining, beautiful souls. Your light is needed in this world more than you know. Embrace your journey, trust the process, and know that on the other side of this darkness, a profound transformation awaits. You've got this, chosen ones. I believe in you. Now it's time for you to believe in yourself. The dawn is coming, and when it does, you'll be ready to soar.